Sister Fran from the Franciscan Sisters of Mary. We are very blessed in this community. We have so many people here, even tonight, to support us in what we're doing. We have the Missouri Coalition for the Environment, Assistant Fire Chief Matt LeMaitre from the Platteville Fire Department. But the Franciscan Sisters have, you may not hear or see much of them, but they're behind the scenes. We hold a prayer vigil every other week out of the old Cadillac Jack property. But they have chosen to stand behind this community and call for the removal of radioactive waste. And so we also have, are there any elected officials here tonight? I know, is Kim Baker here from DePaul tonight? Kim's in the back. Hi, Kim, thank you. We do have DePaul represented, so that's very nice to have them here.
And Bill will be here.
Okay, State Representative Bill Otto, this is Harvey Bergman, State Representative Bill Otto's policy advisor. Bill will be here later. I think Lou Lucy from Congressman Clay's office will be here as well.
Let's just place ourselves in God's presence as we begin our prayer. Good and gracious God, we gather in this place tonight in your life-giving presence. We know that you believe in us, you enrich us, you entrust us with the freedom to choose life. For this we are grateful. In these challenging times, we want to be open, to be good listeners, to be creators of change, and to promote a healthy life for the people and the land in this community, and for all of creation. We ask you to bless our elected officials. Let compassion and honesty and courage guide their hearts to do what is right. Bless this gathering tonight, O God. Help us each to give of our best, to speak with integrity, and not lose hope as we continue to work for justice at the West Lake Landfill site. We ask all of these things in your name. Amen.
So, I know a lot of you probably watched the news. We've got a lot of information tonight on what's happening with the fire. This community group focuses on both. We focus on the fire, for those of you that are new, and the radioactive waste, because we see them as one big issue. You know, I know that the DNR, the Department of Natural Resources, the state is in charge of the fire, and the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, they have jurisdiction over the radioactive waste. But with what's happening, the community, to us, it's very hard to differentiate and say, well, it's one thing or the other. There are two things going on, but they have the potential to be one. So this gathering, this community group, we focus on both issues and the potential for the impact and what that looks like. The other thing I want to mention, there's the Aaron Rokovich team. There's Bob Bocock and Melissa Dutcher. About, was it 3.5 months ago, maybe 4? This community, we reached out with multiple emails. I feel bad for you guys. I know you got swallowed. But we reached out to Aaron and her team because this is what they do. They go around from city to city, state to state, and they look at communities that are in crises and see how they can best help. And so, did you want to say anything? Or?
No, we're here as guests for your meeting, and if anybody has any questions later in the evening, we'll be happy to answer them.
Right, and there will be a question and answer period. Like I said, we do have the Assistant Fire Chief here. We have State Representative Bill Otto just walked in over there. So there will be a period where you can ask myself, the coalition, anybody. Karen Nickel is here. Karen actually started the Facebook page for those of you who are or not on it. If you're not and you have access to a computer, we have a Facebook page, West Lake Landfill. We also have a website, stlradwasteLegacy.com. That is a great way for you to get up-to-date current information. I have to be honest, we're not on top of that website yet like we should be, especially with what's happened this week. It's very, with articles and news stories coming out, new information being released. It's very hard for us because we're not so computer savvy to get on that and update it. But we try as hard as we can, and the Facebook page is something that's very easy for us to paste or link an article. So the Facebook page is a good place to go for accurate information, up to date. The website's still a good place to go, but we're working on that. I forgot your name, I can't remember your name, but you're from Maryland Heights? Susie Meyer from Maryland Heights, she asked if she could come and say a few words.
I'm with the Maryland Heights Citizens for Responsible Growth, and I'm very much interested in what's going on here because it's affecting us as well as all the communities around here. I would just like to give a little input into this. First, I ask you why. Why do we have to fight for what is evident to everyone but West Lake Quarry and their owners, Republic? This is detrimental and deadly to the health of all human beings. We are dealing with nuclear and radiation, detrimental to the environment. Where do you expect to go with this? We want a solution. We recognize the danger. Do you? We are ready to fight to this conclusion. We realize that you analyze and analyze. It's time to toss the politics aside. It's time to deal straight on with the issue at hand. It's time to move forward with strength and force as a united people to stop this from being destroyed. We, the people in our communities, are really in a deadly position. We can and we will win. We welcome any and all input from the Aaron Boggovich team. I feel with their presence, we can win. Thank you.
Thank you, you're from Maryland Heights speaking out. It's really comforting to see people from our community step forward and understand this issue and become knowledgeable. So, Ed, do you want to do? Oh, you know what? Logging the smells. All right, this is going to get on your nerves, and I apologize. You have to log this smell. It's very important. I know it's a pain to get on the DNR's website. It takes a long time, and especially now, I would recommend you can go to the Coalition's website and link to the DNR's website. It's hard to find their smell log now. They've moved it, so there are places that are set up where you can link to it, but the bottom line is this is evidence in a court case, okay? Every smell log that the DNR gets, and I talked with them about this week, every single log goes and it's documented. It's part of their lawsuit, the Attorney General's lawsuit against Republic. It's evidence. They need, even if you live 4 miles away and you barely think you smell it, fill out the log and say, you know what, I think I have like a small whiff of it. It talks about describing it. That's important because we need to know, as you'll learn tonight, there's another hot spot. We need to know if there's a different smell now. Some people I know, do we have people from Spanish Village up here? Some people from Spanish Village are saying that they're smelling like a scorching smell, more of like a burning plastic smell on top of the garbage leachate smell. So that's something that the DNR has asked to be as specific as possible, which, to describe it, which I know sounds gross, but it's necessary. Okay, Kat Logan Smith's going to come and give community achievements.
So we've been doing this since at least, some people since October. First community meetings were November last year, and then January, and then ever since. And so in that time period, a lot of folks come to meetings, and if this is your first meeting, anybody here first time? All right, well, welcome. Well, we're going to get you out. So we wanted to make sure that you understand that coming to meetings is not all that exciting. However, it does make a difference, and this community working together has been able to make a difference. And so we thought we'd go through a few of the things that we've been able to do before you got here. And now that you new people are here, we can do even more. So this is what we've done so far. We've worked with we've persuaded the state to do more air testing, and that started in February after a barrage of phone calls and things like that. We've gotten we got it to the point where the Attorney General got involved and filed papers and made things move. We've criticized the contingency plan, we analyzed every piece of data we could find. Let's keep going here. I'm not gonna read all these because that is a way to kill an audience. We've collected over 2,500 petitions. The Facebook page has over 2,500 people as well. Folks made parade floats and were at the Bridgeton 4th of July parade. How many people saw the parade floats? Some of you were in the parade floats. This community's been very creative in finding ways to help spread the word. We've met with elected officials at all levels. And if you want to go on a trip to Maryland Heights City Council, let me know, because I think that's in the works. And we've worked in past years, getting resolutions from municipalities about removing this waste. And then with EPA, the EPA's been more responsive and accountable than they had been before, and they're now in the habit of attempting to answer our questions. I'm generous, right? And we met with the Missouri Department of Health and Senior Services. We pressured them a couple times to look at the standards that they were using for exposure to some of these toxins that are coming out of landfill fire, and we forced them to tighten their standards because they were looking at standards for workers with an 8-hour-day exposure, and we said, hey, what about children with a 24-hour-day exposure? And we persuaded them that perhaps our children needed a different level. And there's a sheet of paper we're going to pass around here. We might as well do it now. Starting. This one, things you can do. It's on this side, it's on the slide too. But then here's the people to do them to, right? So here's all the phone numbers that you need on this piece of paper. And I know that a lot of you already have one of these from previous meetings, but it's probably beat up and shoved in the bottom of your purse somewhere. So here's a fresh one, and it's easy to find, and it has all the right phone numbers. And we'll tell you this later who you need to be calling this week. Next prayer vigil is next Wednesday at the site. Okay? That's all I have right now, but I think that everybody here deserves a round of applause because we've gotten stuff done, guys. And I know that the fire's not out and the radioactive waste isn't out, but we have gotten stuff done. And it's closer to out today than it was 6 months ago because there's people who are paying attention and we're mobilized and we're doing it. So, thank you.
I want to follow up on that a little bit. We put the community accomplishments up because I know that we ask a lot of you guys. We're always on Facebook asking you to do something. Call DNR today, call Senator Blunt's office today. But the truth is, every phone call that you make puts pressure on them. It's important. And at the end of the day, when I do a follow-up phone call, well, first of all, they do watch the Facebook page. So obviously, they have a little heads up when you post. They know it's coming. They get ready for it. But they do. They report back and they say, yeah, we got 60 phone calls, we got 50 phone calls, especially the Attorney General's office right now and the DNR. It's really, really important to put pressure on them. What's happening up in this landfill, not to talk bad about the DNR, but I think if you've read the news at all, any article this week, you'll know that the DNR, the Department of Natural Resources, is working overtime right now on this issue, and this is like nothing they've ever had to deal with before. This is so complicated, and they're overwhelmed. It feels like we're picking on them, I know, because this is, we're having everybody call them, but at the same time, it keeps them on their toes. And it's really interesting. I had some phone calls last week with the DNR. The phone calls that you guys are making, you guys are understanding this stuff because you're asking some really good questions. And it's taken them actually longer now to get back because they're not able to just pick up the phone and call and say, yeah, we got your message. You guys are actually staying on the phone with them, talking with them, and pushing them up against the wall. And they try and give you guys half answers. You guys aren't falling for it anymore. You know the truth. You know enough about what's happening up here. For those of you who are new, that's kind of one of our goals with this meeting is so you can get this information and you can educate yourself so that when you do make a phone call to these agencies, you know the right questions to ask, and you also know when you're being fed a half-truth answer. you guys can pick that out real quick, and that's really important. So, with that, Ed, do you want to take over and do the? Bill, Representative Otto, do you want to do a political update? Do you want to do an update, or have anything you want to say before we start?
How do you do a political update exactly?
Wow.
Very long.
I don't need that, do I? No. Let me give you a plug first place. A week from tonight, Rory Ellinger over, and I forget the district number, over in University City is going to hold a panel forum. And he does these, I think, 2 or 3 of them a year. A lot of people in his district like them and attend them, and they are discussions on topics and issues that are the metro area in general. So he's going to hold that next Thursday. I'd love everybody to be there. What's great about this is that it's outside this confines of this area. And it gets us a little more direction, or a little more evidence or attention to this issue outside of this general area. Rory's a great guy. He's going to have Kay Dry's on the panel. I'm on the panel. Kay is on the panel. Dawn's on the panel. Matt's on the panel. And Tom Kern from county government's going to be on the panel. So it's a pretty good group, and I'd really like to see you all there. It's going to bring a little more attention outside of here, and that's good. Today we met with Senator Blunt's office. Yes, ma'am.
Where is this meeting?
Oh, it's at Heman Park Community Center in University City. It's like Olive in Pennsylvania, somewhere right in there. I think it's on the Facebook page. If you have any questions, I'm bill.otto@house.mo.gov or bill@billotto.org, either one. So send me an email and we'll get you there. I think the best place, well, this has to be handled at the federal level. We met today with Blunt's staff. This is actually a meeting with my office. I have, since I represent this area, we met with both McCaskill staff and Blunt staff, and the idea is that I'm the state representative, so I bring people into this meeting that will help me make my point to them for you. Today went okay. What I want to do is get somebody, I was going to say off their butt. Is there another way to put it? This has to be settled at the federal level. It has to. That's, you guys know that the radioactive waste is controlled by the EPA, the landfill, and all those issues are controlled by the state, and they can't touch each other, and that's ridiculous. So we met with Blunt's office today. I thought we did a good presentation. Harvey, where's Harvey?
Oh, you're behind you.
Yeah, Harvey. Oh, thank the Lord for Harvey, because he is the rock of this group. At least for me, he can keep up with it. You think he'll blush? No, he can speak for my office in technical terms. There's no way I can keep up with this and the veto session and everything else. So we met today with Blunt. We met with McCaskill last week. The week before. Yeah, week before. Did the same presentation. They had some folks from DC on a video conference. We're keeping that pressure up. I think that it's important that I'll do my end. Pattonville Fire District is heavily invested in this, and they're keeping the pressure up where it needs to be. You guys, we have a community action group. Everybody that has an opportunity to put pressure on the folks that need it individually, I think that's better than, believe it or not, I think it's better than all having one group, because then they talk to one group and don't care. Everybody, when she said call or email, please do it. You email. As a state representative, I tell you, emails are more effective than letters or phone calls. They stay on my computer and they look at me every time I open my computer, so I have to answer those eventually. Email, and once you get an answer, do the old thing, when you email once, when you get an answer, then email twice. Okay? And keep going. Am I missing anything? So that's sort of the political end of what I can do and what I'm trying to do and how I'm using my office and trying to get, like I said, the feds off there. My next goal is to sit down with the governor's staff Hopefully I get an audience, a direct audience with the governor at some times, but right now it's important for us to educate the staff so they understand the issues, so that when their boss asks them exactly what's going on, he knows that they know, and when he takes that step, he's got somebody behind him can whisper in their ear what he needs to know, because it's impossible for one person to know all that this group collectively knows. There's just no way. So, thanks.
Thank you, Bill. I've been asked to say a few words as well. I think you can all hear me okay? I've been working with this community for a number of months now, and I'm very, very impressed. We were talking about accomplishments. You guys have accomplished a lot. I can count off the top of my head at least 5 separate independent efforts to get this situation resolved. We have this group that's in this room today. We have the sisters who are doing their own, the privileges and their own letter writing and other things. We have the Patented Fire District that has stepped up and gotten fully engaged now, which is wonderful. Not that they weren't before, but publicly engaged. Thank you. They're the first government officials outside of your elected folks like Bill who have stepped up and challenged what's going on here. We have a group of people who have graciously volunteered to go through all the pain and sorrow of dealing with the bureaucratic structure of the EPA and have taken on a community advisory group. And that's no small task, and we thank them. There may be some grant money and things available through their efforts to help hire some experts to come in and help this community. So that's really good. I see a couple of the board members sitting in the audience tonight. Thank you all for stepping up for that task. I don't know if I hit all 5 or not, and of course Bill's office, which is wonderful and has allowed me to use and leverage that as well into this situation, which has been very useful, as I think you all know. And I want to thank anyone who's done any research and helped with any of the documentation, and particularly mention Debbie Disser sitting up here in the front row. Apparently she has a background in genealogy, and she understands how to really not just dig for stuff, but catalog it, which is wonderful, because you don't know how many thousands of pages and hundreds of documents that Dawn and I and others have been through. And it's been very, very useful to have Debbie doing this stuff. But just to give you an example of some of the stuff that Debbie's been working on and how timely it is, in preparation for the meeting with Senator Blunt's office today, I'd gotten all my documentation, all the documentation together, emailed it to them to look at for preview to the meeting. And then I signed on to email this morning, and I see this wonderful set of Google Earth photos going back how many years?
1950.
Going back to 1950?
Area photos 1990.
1990. Going back to 1990, what's that, 23 years worth of photos? Showing the evolution of the dump area and different things that have happened. And one of the things that came out, and I used it in the presentation, we used it in the presentation today, was that there's been some erosion that's happened to Area 2 that has gotten into what's being referred to as the Ford property, where some of those tractor trailer trucks are parked. And you can see in 2002, where the stuff was laying out there, just where it shouldn't be. And then you can see where around November or so, they had gone in with bulldozers, the people who were renting that property, the landowners or leasers, and moved that soil without EPA permission. And we have all the letters and documentation from EPA saying, oh, you shouldn't have done that. And they went in and they just moved that stuff around. So there's some issues going on here where the diligence and the vigilance that's required to manage this kind of material in the middle of a highly populated area may be just too much for our agencies. And when you write your letters and make your phone calls, you may want to also mention, hey guys, how about cleaning up the Ford property after all these years? It's outside, there's nuclear radioactive material outside the fence line. And I think that's about all I have to say today.
My name's Ed. I work for the Missouri Coalition for the Environment. And one more thing is on the political side, before I move along, is we at the last meeting had you all sign letters. They went to Senator McCaskill and Blunt and Congressman Clay and Wagner. Also went to Attorney General Costner and Governor Nixon. And in those letters, we asked them to come out and officially take a stance on what they would like to see done with the radioactive materials at the West Lake Landfill. As you saw on the previous slide, none of them have done it. At least the people on the outside here are federally elected officials. So when you're calling them, please include not only to clean up the stuff at the Ford site, but all of it, and make sure that it goes to a facility that's actually sanctioned to hold low-level radioactive wastes. And just because I say low-level doesn't mean that it's not highly radioactive. It's just it's a technical term that, yeah. Highly radioactive waste is a nuclear fuel rod that has fissioned and comes out of a nuclear reactor, and anything else is basically low-level. So make sure you keep on them, and because we are. Next. There are their phone numbers. If anybody wants a chance to write that down, please do. You can also easily find these on their websites and their local, along with their local numbers. And on the back of the orange paper. All right, let's move on. Temperature hotspots. So you've read the news lately that we believe that the temperatures in the North Quarry are increasing. I'm going to walk through that a little bit. Yeah, so is anybody here unfamiliar with how the radioactive waste got to the West Lake Landfill? So real quick for the new folks, St. Louis purified uranium beginning in 1942 for the Manhattan Project. And it was the first time this was ever done on a commercial scale. It was done in secrecy. There were a lot of excess wastes. Those wastes were then moved from downtown to the airport. That's what contaminated Coldwater Creek. You've heard a lot about that creek lately. Those were then sold by the federal government to a corporation that moved them ultimately to Laddie Avenue in Hazelwood, just north of the airport, to dry out the radioactive wastes and ship by rail. They were wet and heavy, so they dried them out so they'd be lighter and cheaper to ship to Colorado, where they were headquartered, so they could continue refining them there. And what happened is the Atomic Energy Commission, which evolved out of the Manhattan Energy District, ended up shutting down the site, and in 1973 told the company that they needed to clean up the Laddie Avenue site in Hazelwood, and their way of cleaning it up was to send some of that remaining material out to Colorado and take the rest of it and dump it at the West Lake Landfill in 1973, which was before modern day landfill regulations. And two areas right here is Area 1, the one that we're concerned about right now as it relates to the fire, but also all these trees over here, that's Area 2, and that's where the majority of the radioactive wastes are currently buried. And as you can see at this map, here's where, this is the South Quarry. We're right about here. This is the South Quarry that's currently smoldering. Here's the neck of the landfill, this little yellow area. Here's the North Quarry, the one that we're going to be focusing on today, and then here's the operable Unit 1, Area 1, where the radioactive waste is located. Next. This chart comes from the contingency plan that Republic Services submitted to the Department of Natural Resources as a part of the agreement with the Attorney General. And we're going to focus on two things today, the wellhead gas temperature. These are gas extraction wells. They're used in most modern day landfills, if not all of them. I'm not a landfill expert, becoming one. And the way you take temperatures on these, basically they collect the methane and try to create a balance in the landfill so you don't get a landfill fire. And you can take the temperature of the gas coming out of the wellhead at the surface of the landfill, and they can go down several hundred feet. And they do at the West Lake Landfill. But it's an average gas temperature. It's an average of the temperatures from the gas from the bottom of that well all the way to the top. And then we also have at the landfill what's called temperature monitoring probes, right over there. And what happens is every 20 to 30 feet, they have a gauge on there that takes the direct temperature of the landfill at the depth that that little gauge is located. So every 20 to 30 feet, they can get an accurate temperature reading of what's going on.
It's every 9 feet.
Every 9 feet? It's reported every 20 to 30 feet.
If you look at the TMP data and with the...
This is Matt Levanchi. Matt Levanchi, come on up.
Well, I don't need to come up. You're doing a great job. I'm just saying, if you look at the data sheets, it's every 9 feet, and that's how it's reported.
All right. Every 9 feet, even better. Well, for all intents and purposes today, we don't really need to worry about how far away, how far separated they are, because we'll be looking at maximum temperatures. So let's move on. So this is, you saw that first map where south was south and north was north. This is turned to the right. So now here's the St. Charles Rock Road. Here's the radioactive part of Area 1. This outline right here is an estimation of the company hired by Republic Services about where the radioactive wastes are at. They want to build a trench like right about here to try and keep the fire from hitting the radioactive wastes. This is the North Quarry. Here's the neck of the landfill. All these little black dots, we'll get to those. Those are the gas extraction wells. Here's where they're trying to combat the landfill fire from moving into the North Quarry. And here's the South Quarry where the landfill fire is currently at. Next. So this is a close-up. And here's the neck. This is where all that busy stuff was happening. And this is gas extraction well 54. We'll get to that one. We're going to get in even closer, so I just wanted to scale us in next. Okay. So what we have here, a little background first. So actually, will you go back one more? Yes. So remember when I was talking about the temperature monitoring probes? The northernmost temperature monitoring probes at this landfill are along this line right here, TMPs 1, 2, 3, and 4. That's in the neck, right? So we don't have any temperature monitoring probes in the North Quarry, so we don't have an accurate reading of what the landfill temperature is in the North Quarry beyond this average temperature from the gas extraction well. Next. And so what we did here is because we don't have temperature monitoring probes in the North Quarry, I've been under the impression all summer that you have about a 5 to 10 degree difference between a temperature monitoring probe and a gas extraction well. And what I did is put together, so here's gas extraction well 109, which you'll find right here, right in between temperature monitoring probes 5 and temperature monitoring probe 12. The distance between these two areas is about 125 feet, with the gas extraction well being right in the middle. So what I did is I went back and looked at all of the temperature data I could find over the last 2 months. And the reason I have the most recent data is the end of July is because the next monthly report is supposed to be submitted tomorrow. This is literally the most current data I could get on the gas extraction wells. So gas extraction well, average temperature 146 on July 29. The TMPs 143, which is just below 146, and 166 at TMP 5, which we expect to see is closer to fire. No data for these. I actually have a little bit of worry about TMP 12 and whether it's working properly or not because of the way it has been reporting temperatures. Regardless, you can see that there's, in some cases, a significant difference between the average temperature of the gas extraction well on June 18 and the actual temperature, and these are the max temperatures, so at every different distance there's a different temperature. So these are the max temperatures. I just wanted to give people an idea that a gas extraction well average temperature is not always the best indicator of whether you have a landfill fire or not. And so, because we don't have access to a lot of this other data, and I think Matt Levanchi can speak to that, This is something we created to give people an idea of what's going on. So you see significant increases in the actual temperatures being recorded in the landfill compared to the gas extraction well right here. And then we've got a couple closer ones. Next. So this is gas extraction well 10 and temperature monitoring probe 10. Both of them are right here. So these two are much closer to one another than down here. And you can see the temperatures are drastically higher for the maximum temperatures in the temperature monitoring probe than they are in the gas extraction well. So right now, these are pretty close to the landfill fire. And again, the max temperatures in the 160s. 170 is not good. Anything over 130 is cause for alarm. 170 is really not good. And so I just wanted to show you that you can have much higher temperatures below the surface of the landfill than you get from the surface when reading a gas extraction well. Next. And then same for gas extraction well 11 and temperature monitoring probe 9. This is in the fire. This is on the south side of these blue things, which are the gas interceptor wells meant to keep the landfill fire to the south. So that's why you see some higher numbers here. This one must be inaccurate. And so you can also see, again, 40, 50 degrees higher, what the highest temperature is right next to that gas extraction well, even though it's saying it's 180 something degrees. Next. So temperature monitoring, or gas extraction well 54. If you want to go back to the zoom out, one more. Gas extraction well 54 is right here. There are no temperature monitoring probes anywhere near it. And so the reason that, again, that I looked at the TMP data on gas extraction wells next to, TMPs next to gas extraction wells, is just to see what was the variance in the maximum temperature compared to what we're seeing here. And this is the well that has been in the news lately. Next. Go forward several, yeah. And so since 722 to 719, we've seen the temperature fluctuate between the 140s and mid 150s. And I guess the point that I'm trying to make is that we need more information about what's happening in the North Quarry, because right now we're left to speculation about what's happening. And if I'm going to be left to speculating, then I'm going to assume that it's the worst case scenario, because we're not being given the information we need to make the determination otherwise. And I've been hearing from the folks in Spanish Village that the odors have changed. If we're seeing rising temperatures in the North Quarry, which has older trash and solid waste than the South Landfill, that could be a reason why there's a different smell if that's burned. Do you have something to say?
I do. Did you know this? So on your orange sheet is a box here that says, call the Attorney General's office this week. And you have their phone number. And it says, we need temperature monitoring probes and CO data in the North Quarry. Actually, it doesn't say we need temperature monitoring probes in the North Quarry, but we do. And we've been pestering the state for this for a month now, and now we know.
They've been required in the comment letter from 2 weeks ago.
And they've been required, and they're not in yet.
Correct.
But those are temperature monitoring probes in the
26, 27, and 28, they're on the north side of the neck, which will give us an indication past the intersection.
So we're making progress. I'm still going to tell you to call the Attorney General tomorrow. And ask them for CO data on the North Quarry and temperature monitoring probes in the North Quarry. That's the message this week.
Next. This was an exchange we had last time we were here. We think that the temperatures are increasing in the North Quarry. DNR sent Republic a comment that said, we will require you to put a cap, essentially what the South Quarry has, that big black geomembrane cap on the North Quarry if odors persist. And Republic Services says, that's not the contingency plan. As such, no response is provided here. You can read it. And again, Chris Koster, back when this agreed order was put in place, is was allowing for public services to be a good corporate citizen. Those are his words. And so far, I think that they're leaning towards not being a good corporate citizen if they're not willing to respond to the community's concerns, which have been inconvenienced lives by odors at all hours during the day. Next. At the last meeting, we showed you the temperatures on trigger line 1. So I just wanted to give you the most up-to-date information on that. We've seen one go up a fairly good amount, and the other ones are relatively the same. Next.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Yeah, could you, for the people that are just here for the first time, explain what a trigger line is?
Yeah, so in the agreed order between the Attorney General and Republic Services, there was a contingency plan was a part of the agreed order. And a part of the contingency plan, you would have triggers that would, basically put in place corrective actions to try and prevent the radioactive wastes in the landfill fire from meeting. And trigger line 1 is a set of temperature monitoring probes that if it hits a certain criteria, temperature or CO data or some combination of both, that the first trigger would be tripped and you would start seeing a new cap on the North Quarry to try and stop oxygen intrusion into the landfill and reduce the odors. So there's a host of triggers, and there's still kind of a back and forth going on between the state and the public services. Yes.
Is TMP 13 at 9 feet, is that a typo?
No. I thought I'd get that asked. I was actually quite surprised to see that. I don't know if it was it's not a typo on my end. If you look at the latest temperature monitoring probe data, TMP 13 was reading 181 degrees at 9 feet.
Matt, you aware of any of this?
Oh, yeah.
Is there a comment?
Yeah.
Really unusual.
This is Matt Levanchi again. Yay.
I'm aware of TMP 13, and we actually had a technical meeting today with Republic DNR, myself, and the engineers and everybody else. But that was one of the questions that was posed, and lo and behold, Republic has had an electrician out, and they found fault with some of that TMP data. The report's not available yet, but I'm sure that that's going to be coming in the next few days. In fact, they're going to replace TMP 13 and put in a new TMP 13 right next to it because they feel that there's incomplete data all along all those 9 feet distance sensors. So it's going to be, then, well, I don't believe that it's on all of them, but they're getting readings that weren't correct, according to them. And to be honest with you, and with the being at 9 feet, I don't want to sound like an alarmist, but it triggered an alarm for us because we've scheduled a meeting with our mutual aid fire districts because this data has come out. Now, if you follow the weekly data, over the last 7 or 8 weeks, TMP 13 has had elevated temperatures at the 9-foot level. The issue that we have, the question we were asking is now that 181 is within 9 degrees of triggering trigger 1, Republic has an issue with it. So the question that was raised today, and it's going to be followed up from our district to the DNR and turn to Republic, is if they have a problem with the data on TMP 13, did this electrician check the rest of the TMPs to see if they're also faulty? The other thing that is coming out, and then like Ed said, is tomorrow is the data that surrounds that. For you guys have heard, you've probably heard me on the news saying the data's incomplete, we don't have all the data. First thing I want to let you know is there is no magic number to signify that there is a fire in the landfill. It coincides with the data that is provided. Now once the temperatures, especially out in gas extraction 154, hit 140, they had to start providing CO data. That's not yet available. It will be available tomorrow, and I've actually seen it, and they're showing non-detect, which means there's 0 amounts of CO. So, you know, we have to take them at their word, unfortunately, because nobody else is out there testing it, but this is lab certified data that's gonna come out tomorrow. Everything else in the North Quarry for the month of August has shown 0. So if you follow the data and you put 2 and 2 together, it basically means that that subsurface smoldering event is not yet in the North Quarry. For months and months since the beginning of this thing in 2009, really, I mean, DNR got involved in 2010, but if you go back and look at the data that was provided prior to that, gas extraction well 54 has always been on the higher side. There's no explanation to that. You would think that while the electrician was out there yesterday checking a TMP, they might have checked some of the stuff on 54 because that has been historically higher. The thing the question was raised over the week with the news interview was that Republic went on record to say that that temperature is trending down. If you actually do the statistical math, that is trending up. Even though it drops and goes back up and drops, if you draw a line between the high point and the low point, this is going back to 5th grade math, draw a line in the middle, that trend line is going up. So it's definitely a concern of ours. I wouldn't say that that temperature was alarming, but it was definitely a concern of ours. And even Republic on record today said they are monitoring that. So the fire department is also monitoring that. And if that makes us an alarmist, then I guess Republic is too. So that's the data behind TMP 13. So it's going to be very interesting. And the thing that we need to know, and you guys need to know, like I said, TMP 26, 27, 28, which is in the north area. If you can go back to that slide that shows the close-up of the gas extraction wells. It's going to be this one here. TMP 26, 27, and 28 are going to be along this area here. And so it's going to give us, with the new TMP here, and the 3 in this area here, because to be honest with you, the event, the smoldering event, is to the west side of that neck. It's also down in this area, but the area where we're concerned about it running the flank is on that northwest side, or yeah, I guess it'd be the northwest side. Once that's done, and that's supposed to start September 30th, and they said that it will take a couple weeks to put those in. Once we see that data, then we'll know whether or not their equipment was faulty or not. But we're watching it closely, and I think the thing that you guys need to know as a community here, our fire district has always been on record of saying that your safety is our #1 priority. We deal with the fire. We've come to understand this landfill fire. Like Ed said, he's not a landfill fire expert. I'm not a landfill fire expert, but I am a fire expert, and I understand the science that's going on with that information that's being provided. The thing we have to remember with any fire, whether it's a burning house fire, a forest fire, the #1 product off gas of a fire is CO. So, especially in a smoldering fire, and the reason it smolders and why there's so much CO is because it's incomplete combustion. If you guys drive up and down the Rock Road, you see their flares that they have there. At night, they're glowing blue. That's a complete burn. So everything that's going through that stack is being incinerated. When you see an orange flame, like in a fireplace, things like that, that's a sign of incomplete combustion. And anytime you have that, you have levels of CO. So when you see CO, and there's data that, I don't think you guys had it tonight, but there's data to the south side of the gas interceptor well system, we've got CO 8, 9, almost 10,000 parts per million, which is high. That's what tells us we have a fire. Couple that with the temperature, you can put 2 and 2 together. You know you have a hot spot, you have incomplete combustion producing CO, so you can formalize where that smoldering event is at. The data that's provided today does not indicate that it has gone through the neck, which is good news for us, because we've been saying all along, the community safety is first. What we're asking to be done is to go ahead and safely build that barrier wall, cap the entire North Quarry so this community does not have to endure the horrific stench, the decreased quality of life for the next 3 years or shorter, depending on how that fire or smoldering event moves through the north area. We're not saying we're giving up the North Quarry. That's never been our message to Republic, to DNR. DNR has said all along that our goal is to keep the event contained at the neck. The statement I made on the television that got me in a little bit of trouble, no, I wouldn't say trouble, that raised eyebrows with politicians and everybody else is that what was said was we just need to cap it and dig the trench. And that's not the statement that was made. We agree it needs to be capped and the trench needs to be dug safely, as long as they can prove that there's no radiological material in that area. Do you have a picture of that for that?
I can get from one.
Anyway, what we want to be done is gamma probe, and Republic agrees to do this. However, some of the information they're using is based on 30-year-old data to show where the radiation originally was. They're not talking about doing core sampling, they're talking about doing gamma probing, and that to me is not the safeguard that this community deserves, because if we go in and start digging a hole in trash that's contaminated with radioactive material and there's no safeguard to contain that, there's no difference between doing that and allowing the fire to get to that and spread it in, because it becomes airborne at that point, whether it's carried by smoke or if it's carried away by wind, mechanically done by a bulldozer or whatever, there's no difference. The radiation is out of its container and it's a threat to this community. So our comment is that we can do it safely, and you guys can see this is where the proposed barrier wall is. Again, back to that, that's our statement, that's what we would like to see done. I don't think anybody else argues with that. Todd Thalhammer, the fire expert, agrees with that. But that's not the only thing, and these are the comments that don't make the news. That's not the only thing we're saying to do. We're saying to do that, and then go back and try to contain the fire. We've always said that the best management of this is to contain the smoldering event. I believe starting September 30th, the same time that the construction for the new TMPs is going on, they are going to try another experimental system inside of gas extraction well number 5, or gas interceptor well number 5, which is the furthest south, right in the middle. Some of the higher temperatures have been there, but they're going to try a brine water radiator system. They show, and basically it's going to go inside the pipe that they put in. It's a 36-inch diameter pipe. They're going to put in a radiator, and they believe that this cooled water is going to be able to